Shout out to Bring Our Q, Julius, you legend. We're going to do a joint interview, yeah? Yeah, we'll do a joint interview, Julius. Thanks for the support. You're a legend. From your girls, Raven and Ellie.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this per tweet from International Boxing News. The undisputed bout between Amanda Serrano and Cruz will take place as originally planned for February 4th at the Hulu Theater in Madison Square Garden. The Hulu Theater is a smaller...
It's not the big room. The Hulu Theater seats about 5,000, give or take.
Not approximately close to 20,000 like the big room does at MSG in New York City.
The Erica Cruz undisputed featherweight title fight is a significant fight, an important fight for both Amanda Serrano and Puerto Rican boxing, as she would effectively become the first undisputed Puerto Rican champion in the four-belt era.
Amanda's made a lot of history already. She's set to make more if she can win this fight, though this fight services as a prelude, a warm-up to a much bigger fight, what is supposed to be the Katie Taylor showdown, the Katie Taylor rematch, set to go down in Ireland in front of 80,000 screaming Irish.
Big fight.
Set to be boxing on the undercard of the undisputed featherweight title fighters Ramla Ali, unbeaten Ramla Ali, unbeaten Sky Nicholson.
Matchroom fighters.
The presence of matchroom fighters on the undercard of this show gives me the impression that Amanda Serrano may have entered into a two-fight deal, a two-fight engagement with Matchroom that caps off with that Katie Taylor rematch. Otherwise, why would Matchroom's Sky Nicholson or Ramla Ali, why would Alicia Baumgardner, fan favorite Alicia Baumgardner, why would they be on the same card as Amanda?
It's got to be because Amanda agreed to a two-fight deal that caps off with a Taylor rematch.
And what that, in effect, means is that Amanda's next two fights are going to be shown on the DAZN platform. Most Valuable Promotions has done a very good job for Amanda Serrano, putting good money in her pockets and getting her good fights.
The chance to make history on more than one front.
I've made my feelings about a Serrano versus Cruz fight crystal clear. It does promise to be an all-action shootout, so long as Erica Cruz decides to stay in character, stay that mid-range to inside pressure fighter that's a volume puncher and goes for the gusto. So long as she does this, it should be an action-packed fight. We'll see if she stays in character, in reference to Alicia Baumgardner, who's said to be the co-main event to the main event.
Been widespread speculation as to who young Alicia is going to be facing next, because then champion Hyun Mi Choi has been labeled a champion in recess. Thus, Alicia is not going to be fighting her for undisputed. She's going to be fighting somebody else, and I've seen a lot of names thrown around.
Anyone from Germany's own unbeaten up-and-comer, Ramona Grafe, former WBC lightweight champion Delphine Persoon. I've even seen it suggested in some circles that Michaela Mayer can be brought into the equation.
There is a palpable desire to see a second fight, to see a rematch between Alicia and Michaela, though I don't get the sense that we're on the eve of that rematch.
I have it on good authority that another name has been thrown into the hat, and it is the name of France's own LM Mekhaled.
Inside sources.
Inside intel suggests that LM Mekhaled may in fact be who Alicia Baumgardner ends up fighting. And if she does end up fighting LM Mekhaled,
how does she stack up with the other names that have been thrown into the hat?
LM Mekhaled is certainly a more experienced fighter than 4-0 Ramona Grafe. 4-0 Ramona Grafe, in spite of her high ranking via the WBA's rank standings, she's a novice at best.
She's not ready for a fight with somebody as talented as Alicia Baumgardner.
And she's nowhere near as experienced as LM Mekhaled. LM, who sports a professional record of 15 wins with 1 loss, no draws, 3 knockouts.
LM is a lot more qualified to share the ring with Alicia Baumgardner than Ramona Grafe is.
And she's certainly a lot more ballsy than former champion Hyun Mi Choi, who, if I'm being honest, I think is faking an injury to get out of certain defeat, get out of certain injury. She wants to maintain that unbeaten record, and sharing the ring with Alicia Baumgardner.
Look, in spite of Hyun Mi Choi being an unbeaten fighter and then being an unbeaten champion, LM Mekhaled is a ballsier fighter than Hyun-Mi Choi.
Will admit that she's not a better fighter than Delphine Persoon, who gave Ellen Mekhaled her first professional loss. She's not a better fighter than Delphine, and not more experienced, but she is still a solid fighter. More solid than Ramona Grafe and ballsier than Hyun-Mi Choi.
If the intel checks out and it's Ellen Mekhaled who Alicia ends up fighting, it's a solid choice.
Even if it's not everyone's first choice. I know that many of you out there would have liked to have seen Alicia Baumgardner share the ring with Delphine Persoon.
But it was never written in stone that Delphine Persoon would be who Alicia ends up fighting.
It was never a lock, and it was never confirmed. That's just an idea that a lot of people ran with based on where Delphine ranks in the WBA's rank standings.
I'll say that Ellen Mekhaled is a more solid choice than Ramona Grafe, a ballsier fighter than Hyun-Mi Choi.
I don't think she's anybody's first choice like Delphine Persoon would have been, but I'm okay with the fight. I like the fight.
That's assuming the intel checks out and Alicia does end up facing Ellen Mekhaled.
In men's super middleweight news, ahead of what's supposed to be his PBC debut opposite the ring Desmond Nicholson, former champion Demetrius Andrade dismisses Janibek. This guy can't carry my bags to the gym. All the more reason he should have fought him. I'd wager he would have made more opposite the ring Janibek than what he made.
What he's gonna make opposite the ring Desmond Nicholson.
While he looks back on his time at 160 pounds fondly, the former Olympian has no regrets over how it all played out. In his view, Andrade believes he should have been given a showdown against someone who brought more monetary value to the table. It wasn't worth anything to me, said Andrade to Fight Hype when asked why he bypassed a Janibek bout. Me and Triple G are in the same lane, the same generation, era. That's what we should be clapping for, not Janibek.
And while I do agree, while I do think that Gennady Golovkin could have and should have made time to unify titles with Demetrius Andrade, no one could force him to do it.
What isn't being said? Gennady Golovkin could not be forced, strong-armed, into fighting somebody he didn't feel like fighting. For whatever reason, he didn't feel like fighting him. And if you want to call it a duck, you can call it a duck.
You can call it what you want, but nobody could force him to do it. So in the absence of a Golovkin fight and in the absence of a Canelo fight,
you have to remember that after the Jason Quigley fight, Demetrius Andrade was a network and promotional free agent. That was his last fight under the Matchroom banner and his last fight on the DAZN platform.
He was still a reigning champion. Janibek Alimkhanulai was little more than his mandatory challenger, and as a reigning defending champion, he could have got a better purse for that fight than what he stands to make opposite the ring Desmond Nicholson.
You're not going to convince me he's going to make $1 million boxing Desmond Nicholson on the undercard of Davis versus Garcia, if that card even takes place, if it even happens, since Gervonta has since gotten himself into a bit of hot water.
We talked about all of that in my previous video.
By the time that this video is uploaded, I wouldn't be at all surprised to hear that the card gets pulled from the Showtime platform due to the egregious nature of Gervonta Davis's latest run-in with the law. Better still, on the premise that Demetrius actually gets to fight on that card, if it actually takes place, you're not going to convince me that they're paying you more money at the PBC and Showtime to box Desmond Nicholson than what you could have made boxing Janibek Alimkhanulai as a reigning defending champion.
From a business perspective, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and from a competitive perspective, a sporting perspective, you can't talk this guy down now.
That doesn't make sense either. You're essentially saying that this guy can't carry my bags to the gym.
Show us why.
Show and prove. Show us better than you can tell us, because you would have made more money fighting that guy than what you're about to make boxing Desmond Nicholson.
You've gone from headlining your own shows, headlining your own fights, to being an undercard fighter.
The rationale at the time was, why fight Janibek Alimkhanulai in defense of the WBO title when Demetrius could move up in weight, take on Zach Parker for interim status by way of the WBO, so that he could either get Canelo Alvarez in the ring as his mandatory challenger or pick up a newly vacated WBO title should Canelo Alvarez vacate it. And I understood that rationale. At that time I did.
But he didn't fight Zach Parker.
Initially, when Demetrius snubbed Janibek Alimkhanulai as his mandatory challenger and elected to move up in weight to take on then unbeaten Zach Parker, Frank Warren of Queensbury Promotions placed a winning bid of $1.9 million. Most of that $1.9 million was going to go to Demetrius Andrade. He was entitled to the lion's share of the pot, but he allegedly
suffers an injury, sits out all of this year.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think Demetrius Andrade thought about it and decided he didn't want to be the away fighter on a Frank Warren show, boxing one of Frank Warren's boys. So he faked an injury. That's what I think.
After the smoke settles, he starts up with this stuff. That Janibek Alimkhanulai isn't fit to carry his bags to the gym, but Desmond Nicholson is?
How do you reconcile it? How do you make it make sense? You say that Desmond Nicholson as a fight is just a formality, a segue to a bigger fight with what are hopefully PBC fighters. PBC fighters like Jermall Charlo, David Benavidez, rather the winner of Benavidez versus Plant.
That essentially what this is an investment in the future. But if it is an investment in the future, it's an investment that hasn't paid off yet. An investment that may not pay off because
the success of this investment, this endeavor, is contingent upon the PBC actually delivering you those fights, delivering you those names.
How long is it going to take them to do that? Most of their fighters fight once a year, if at all.
You're relying on the PBC to put these fights together, the PBC and Showtime? Well, how long is it going to take them to do that? Because until they do, this investment that you've made, it won't pay off.
So you chuck your own belt at middleweight, you throw it in the air, run over to the PBC side of things so that you can now start down-talking Janibek.
After Denzel Bentley makes him look less than spectacular, after Denzel Bentley, not Demetrius Andrade, makes Janibek look human.
That's convenient.
Moves like this always are. You're taking cheap shots, pal. That's what you're doing. You're taking cheap shots at Janibek Alimkhanulai when you could have been the one that exposed him. Hell, you could have been the one that beat him.
Boxing fans, like myself, are sick of hearing guys hypothesize about how much better Demetrius Andrade is than all these other fighters, the Denzel Bentleys and Janibek Alimkhanulais of the world, the Zach Parkers.
Sick of hearing guys postulate and hypothesize about how fucking great a fighter Demetrius Andrade is when the greatest testament to his greatness and his ability as a fighter are the fights that he has, not the ones you imagine.
He's supposed to be some kind of fucking boogeyman to Canelo Alvarez, but look at how he reacts when he's ordered to fight a Janibek. Look at how he reacts when he has to fight a Zach Parker.
He bails. He fucking bails to make an even safer choice than those guys would have been.
But I'm supposed to believe Canelo has anything to be afraid of in this guy. No, you just resent the fact.
You resent that he doesn't need you for anything. That to him, you're just an option among many options. No more attractive, no more appealing than anyone else.
You don't stand out, buddy.
You're just another guy.
Well, what? What? Because you're a two-division champion? Hey, so was Billy Joe Saunders.
What? Because you have an unbeaten record? Billy Joe Saunders had an unbeaten record, but Billy, unlike you, he had a belt for Canelo Alvarez to win at super middleweight, so that became the priority. 79,000 people showed up to see that fight.
Don't try to convince me that Canelo's fighting in fights that people don't want to see when 79,000 people showed up to see that fight.
It's you that people don't want to see.
They don't want to see you, and they don't want to hear you rationalizing about how it's okay to skip out on Janibek Alimkhanulai while you try to pass yourself off as some kind of boogeyman. Boogeymen don't have to skip out on Janibek.
Or Zach Parker. You better hope Al Heyman delivers you those fights. You better hope he delivers you those names.
Otherwise, this will be a boneheaded move in a long list of boneheaded moves.
Finally, in men's super lightweight news, Ramirez on Prograis title shot. It pisses me off that I'm being thrown under the bus.
Is that really what's going on here?
In a recent Instagram live session with Ali Sekbak, a visibly frustrated Ramirez let off some steam, saying he believes he's being thrown under the bus. Unfortunately, this is where I get thrown under the bus, Ramirez said of his situation. Top Rank does not do business with Pro Bellum. They don't care about Pro Bellum or their fighters. That's why I'm getting thrown under the bus, bro. I got 2 fights with Top Rank, and hopefully they either get me a big fight with fellow Top Rank stablemate Teofimo Lopez, but those are decisions I gotta make. Ramirez also indicated that he is eager to establish himself at 147 pounds, a division that his promoter currently does not specialize in. Ramirez said once his contract is up with Top Rank, he might consider linking up with a rival promoter that can get him some big fights.
He's kind of making himself out to be the victim here, caught in the crossfire of Top Rank's aversion aversion to working with Probellum and any of their fighters.
And that explanation would have sufficed if Regis and Jose didn't have history. They were supposed to do this fight between them a long time ago in 2018.
WBC ordered the fight between them then the same way they just ordered it now. And then, like now, it didn't happen.
There was no Probellum involved back then in 2018, so why didn't it happen then? I want to fight Teofimo, but the decisions of what happens next for my career, for example, if I end up going with a different promoter that has more 147-pounders, because I want to move up to 147 too, Ramirez said. I've been at 140 my whole career. It's time for me to also get bigger and let my body get big. There's great fights that I can make with Top Rank. There's Arnold Barboza. I'll fight Barboza in the summer, or Teofimo in the summer. Those are great fights that can generate in-house money. I'm not afraid of fighting anybody, bro. He's a great fighter, Ramirez said of Prograis, but unfortunately, he's with a promoter that has no network. And unfortunately for me, I'm with a promoter that doesn't do business with his promoter.
Sounds good.
Ironically, Ramirez would not be in this situation if he had decided to face Jose Zapata for the vacant WBC 140-pound title. Ramirez declined that opportunity because he was going to get married during the same period. That is when Prograis stepped in and filled in for Ramirez. Prograis wound up stopping Zapata in the 11th round last month, and coincidentally, Jose Zapata and Jose Ramirez, they fought before.
And Jose Zapata gave Jose Ramirez all he could handle.
Now, being engaged in 2019, I just had to get married. Now people want to throw me under the bus. Like marriage isn't important, bro. That's what's wrong with society. I'm still a Christian, bro. What pisses me off right now, bro, is that I'm being thrown under the bus. I'm being thrown under the bus, bro.
So maybe you should have waited after the Zapata fight to get married.
Let's not pretend that that wasn't an option as well. It seems to me that Jose Ramirez didn't want to run it back with Jose Zapata, and he doesn't want to fight Regis Prograis.
Neither Arnold Barboza or Teofimo Lopez are thought of as posing the same threat to Jose that Regis poses to Jose.
And those are good fights. I mean, Jose Ramirez isn't wrong. He can make good money in those fights. He can. But those guys don't pose the same threat to him that Regis poses. Moreover, those guys aren't champions. Regis is.
I just think Jose doesn't want it bad enough. He doesn't want a Prograis fight bad enough, and he doesn't want to be a champion bad enough.
Listen, my contract with Top Rank is not so far out, bro, Ramirez said. Once I'm a free agent, we can look for the promoter that pays us the most. I'm not afraid of fighting you, bro.
Based on what we know, based on Top Rank's aversion to working with Probellum and Jose Ramirez's comments, these recent statements, it sounds to me like Top Rank never bothered to make Regis an offer.
Try and understand that making Regis Prograis an offer to do the fight on the Top Rank side of things, that would have been met with little to no resistance from Probellum. For God's sake, Regis's last fight was on Marv Nation.
It was a Marv Nation promotion, not a Probellum promotion.
If you make Regis an offer and he accepts it to do the fight on your side of things, that don't mean you're working with Probellum, so let's just cut the fucking crap!
Jose didn't want this fight. Top Rank didn't want this fight.
All the stuff about the splits, the promotional outfits, in a nutshell, you didn't want this thing, and they didn't want to do it. And it's as simple as that.